Spring has sprung and quarantine is upon us. So what is there to do? Well, one thing that you could do is just go outdoors and take some photos. Cameras are now more accessible than ever. If you have a phone, a cell phone of any kind, it should have a camera attached. So if you have a smartphone, it gives you a couple of functions that you can actually edit the photo as if you're just using a professional camera body. So today I went out and I just took some photos of some flowers and some weeds. Weeds, believe it or not, are really nothing. It's just a term we call undesirable plants. So I went out and took some photos, and I'll show you the results, and I'll even go over a topic that can help your photography, and I'll talk about the automatic editing function as well as exposure and what it is and how you can use that to your advantage when taking a photo. Okay, so I am in the editing function now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the right hand corner and I'm going to click edit. Once you click edit, there's going to be a bunch of buttons that pop up in the bottom, right in the center of the screen, the bottom center. So the first button, this one right here, is the automatic function. If you press that, it's going to automatically adjust the photo based on the values that were taken. So if you take a photograph in bright daylight, it's going to adjust it so it kind of corrects an overexposure and will fix any of the blacks or the dark areas in the back of the photograph. Now, that might not be what you want, so try and adjust that slider right in the bottom. That circle, that little dot, I'm not sure if you can see it, where the slider is the function that the camera will actually set for you. So what it did for me is it basically overexposed it. So I'm going to just fiddle with it a little, and that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click done, and it's going to save that photograph. The other function that we're going to talk about is the exposure. So if you actually double click on the auto, it will just revert everything. So exposure is the next button over. If you click that, you see that 0, that's the value. It will always be 0 unless you touch it. So I'm going to underexpose it a little bit. Exposure is basically how bright the photograph is. There's another function called highlights, which is different. Highlights are the actual, they're the whites in the photograph. So if you bump your highlights up, it's going to make all the whites a little bit brighter. A technique that you can use is just go to the minimum and maximum values. And that's a good way to just kind of see what the buttons do. So if you overexpose it, this is where the overexposing comes in. You might want to overexpose a photograph. There's nothing wrong with that. But I like to go a little bit darker, so I'm going to underexpose it. There's no real right or wrong way to, edit a photograph. I like darker images, so I'm going to, make mine, how I like it. But that's pretty much what the function is. I hope you learned something and go out and take some pictures.